What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Dream Chasers Ground Zero. Today, I have with us Makayla Guntrum. Makayla, would you mind just sharing the story of a personal ground zero moment with us? And then to piggyback off of that, just some of the things that you've learned along the way to help you get to where you are today.
Sure. So I kind of have two that tie into each other. My first ground zero moment, I was a senior in high school. It was 3 days into my senior year, and my grandma had a heart attack. She passed away. She was somebody I was extremely close to, somebody I looked up to, and just that one constant in my life. And she was always there for me. So going into my senior year, it made it really rough. Then I was going through a lot of issues at home. I won't go into too much detail, but CYS was involved, and I actually was able to move out of my house at 17, moved in with my grandfather, and then I kind of went on from there. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, started working on myself, and just really trying to get my life back on track because I felt when my grandma passed away, it kind of fell apart. Didn't know what I was going to do at that moment. And then I lost everything I ever knew growing up, moving out, and kind of going from there. So then my freshman year of college, I chose to go to Westminster, and I went in as a biology major, pre-veterinary medication, and I'm going to say that again, pre-veterinary science. So I went in with the goal of becoming a veterinarian. It's what I've always wanted to do. And then as I was going through school, I decided biology in the first semester wasn't going to be right. I had a professor look at me and said, if I continued within the department, I would fail, and it would be better just to drop it now, during my first semester of freshman year. So it was a little devastating to hear that news. And I had no idea what my backup plan would be. So I had two options: either drop out of college, quit, fail, do exactly what the people who were rooting against me would hope I would do, or I could do what my grandma wanted me to do and be happy. So I chose to be happy and move on, and I went with education. So now I'm an early childhood and special education major, but that decision was absolutely life-changing. So I would say that would be kind of my ground zero moments.
Awesome. And I mean, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. I'm somebody that can understand that firsthand. I actually just lost my grandfather last August, and very similar kind of circumstances. He was always there, so I definitely understood the feeling of the loss. And trust me, I'm still working on getting over it a little bit. So trust me, I'm with you there. But I
I'm sorry
honestly
to hear
can't tell
that.
you. Yeah, no, it's okay. Thank you. But I honestly can't tell you how angry it makes me when I hear like that in the example that you gave, and someone in a position of authority, such as a teacher or a professor, like telling a student something like that. Like I had somebody do it to me too, and honestly, it's a large driver that I still use to kind of stick it to that person. But I can't stand that. That just makes me so angry. And I don't want to go off on much of a tangent here, but like, who are you to tell me that? Like, I don't get me wrong. I understand that like certain subjects aren't for everybody. Like, I will honestly tell you, science is not my strong suit. I'll tell you that right now. But like, just to did they even try to work with you like whatsoever, or did they just tell you like this ain't for you, literally, like leave?
So it's a long story. I'm going to make it short. It was after my second exam. I failed the first one and I got like a 68. So I failed the second one as well. The 68 was on the second exam, but I was improving because the first one was absolutely tanked. And I was going through a lot because like I said earlier, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. My freshman year of college, I changed my medication. And so at that time, my first semester, I was going through a psychological medication change and trying to navigate my way through college a year after losing the most important person in my life. And I didn't really rely on that professor. I didn't reach out for help. I didn't go to his office hours or anything. But I don't think he also kind of met up with his end of the bargain in seeing, hey, oh, this girl's a first year. She might be going through something. Like, he didn't reach out. And he just kind of, I went to reach out and talk to him after the second exam, and I got my grade back. And he was like, yeah, I just don't foresee you doing well. And I think you should quit while you're ahead. So that's kind of how that went down.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't want to stick on that too long. And yeah, that makes me angry. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm gonna switch it up to a little more positive note. But um, anyway, um, I mean, just I really like the way you kind of handled it though. Like, despite what he said, which is extremely frustrating, despite all of that, like, you didn't say like, okay, it's over for me. I'm just gonna go work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. Like, you didn't say that. You didn't give up. You just said, okay, I got to change gears here, and I got to find something else that I think that I'm going to enjoy. So at that point, you had to do, maybe a little bit of internal soul searching, and really find out something else that aligned with you, something else that you were interested in before, or maybe something totally new. And that's one of the things that I like about what you mentioned, is that, you found early childhood education and you found a new passion in that, and you pursued it in the memory of your grandmother to be happy. And that's one of the things that I also really liked about what you mentioned, because instead of just picking the next best thing per se, in terms of finances, in terms of something like that, you went and looked for something that you're going to enjoy. And that, I think, is something that is extremely important, that I feel like a lot of us really aren't doing now. I feel like a lot of people are coming into school and they're saying, oh, well, I'm going to go be a CPA because they make great money. Well, yeah, they make great money, but they're also the highest job for alcohol poisoning, or not alcohol poisoning, like they have the highest percentage in jobs for like alcoholism or something like that. And like
Mhm.
when I heard that stat, I mean, I would like to say I was surprised, but at the same time, like, I'm not, to be honest with you. Like, somebody was probably sitting there one day crunching numbers on their computer, and they're like, shoot, I can drink a beer while I'm doing this. And then they go and do that. And then all of a sudden there's a whole case next to them, and it's over.
And then 20
Anyway,
years down the road, it's still going.
right. So anyway, like I said, I really liked that when you changed that up, you kept yourself in mind, and you kept what mattered to you in mind. And then you put emphasis on that. Like, despite everything else going on, you put the emphasis on, okay, I need to find something that's going to make me happy. And that's what I think is really the most important thing out of that, because, like, I'm glad you just didn't pick something just because, you know what I mean, that you could just go continue to be miserable for the rest of your life. So yeah, I just really like that a lot. One thing I do want to kind of ask here is, like, kind of, I know you had kind of a lot going on at that time. So what I kind of want to, like, not dig into, but kind of like ask around here is, like, with so much going on, what were you kind of doing as like coping at the time? Like, how were you kind of able to keep your head on straight with kind of so much emotional chaos going on, as far as like all the different incidents going on between the professor, between your grandmother, between all those things? Kind of like, what were you doing at the time as far as like coping goes?
I'm gonna be honest, I was not coping healthily. The only thing I was doing to cope healthily is therapy and medication, which is a great step in the right direction. However, I was definitely kind of exploring myself as well, but in kind of bad ways. So I was going out every single weekend with my friends, and yeah, that was fun. But when you have exams on Monday or you have class on Monday, it catches up to you every single time. And so I guess I wouldn't say I was coping very well. However, I just kept telling myself in the back of my mind, like, you just have to get through it. And I have an extreme like motivation factor in, I kind of do things out of spite sometimes. And so my stepfather looked me in the eye and said, I placed a bet on you and how long it would take for you to drop out of college. And that has been my motivation to keep going. And so that's why when I changed my majors, I was like, there's no way I am dropping out and making that man happy about that decision. So definitely out of spite. That was how I coped.
I mean, I can say that that may not necessarily be the most healthy way, but hey, everybody does it their own way. Um, and we all kind of have to learn. I mean, like, especially never having been through something like that before, we don't just know how to cope. Where like I can say, um, like between losing my grandfather and then like another big emotional thing for me was basketball was my entire life prior to kind of everything that I'm doing now. And having to step away from that was a big emotional thing for me as well. That I didn't really know how to handle that. Like my identity was wrapped up in it, and I didn't have a clue where to go from there. I just kind of knew that it was kind of my time to go, and from there I had to find something else. Kind of similar to like what you mentioned in changing majors. Um, but what I kind of like to call these, I guess you could say, times in our lives where life just kind of likes to try and throttle you and throw everything at you in 37 different directions, and just kick you while you're down. I like to call them squeeze points. I didn't coin the term, but I heard somebody else use it. Now I like to use it like that because quite literally it feels like life is like squeezing the life out of you. um, and like for me, the way that was is like, I mean, I'm working a job, I have class, I have homework, I have studies, I have, you know, um, a side hustle and a podcast that I had started, and all of these things going at once. And, that was enough. My plate was full. And then you take my grandfather, and then you throw one more thing, and then you throw one more thing. And I'm just like, why? You know what I mean? Everybody at this point says, like, why am I still being attacked for whatever's going on? But what I can say though is that getting through those squeeze points is like, not to be cliche, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of thing, where
Absolutely.
getting through that brings you one step closer to exactly where you want to be. And another phrase that I heard earlier this morning, like kind of getting through those tough times is kind of like putting a down payment on your future. And it, like, as I mean, like it brings you one step closer to whatever that vision is for yourself. And, maybe the next hard time won't be quite as hard. And that's where like we kind of have to pay our dues per se, kind of getting through those emotionally chaotic times so that we in a sense can value those things that are going to come for us in the future down the road. Um, like me personally, like I don't want to work 40, 60, 80 hours a week for the rest of my life. I just don't. So like when, people tell me, well, you're crazy. You're going to have to work until you're 65 and Social Security's not even going to be there, but hey, you're going to do it anyway. I say, you're out your damn mind. Like,
Like,
that's
no, I'm
not what
not.
I want to do. That's not the vision that I have for myself. And I'm not letting that happen. But it's that's where one of the things that I learned the hard way was you kind of have to be careful who you share your vision with. And that's where kind of in a similar scenario, I was sharing what I wanted to accomplish with someone, and they more or less just straight to my face told me, well, you're not going to be able to do that. And this is the other situation that I was talking about where I felt very relatable to what the professor had said to you, because I was just like, who are you to tell me that I can or can't? Like, I could put in like, just because I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of tangled up here because I'm
No, you're okay. It's my biggest
trying not
pet
to
peeve.
get I'm trying not to get frustrated, you know what I mean? um anyway, like it just because quite honestly, I found out in a real and actual way, like that had I gone on a certain path, which I didn't, but had I gone down a certain path and connected with a couple certain people that I did meet but just didn't work with,
Mhm.
that I could have achieved the exact thing that I was told I couldn't before I even graduated. And like to me, like I chose not to do that out of spite, but simply because I kind of found a better direction and I found something I was going to enjoy more that has a bit more of a delayed response where it's a little more long term, where I would have, maybe been able to do that right out of school, but now like I'm looking something a little bit different. But like to me, I was a little bit proud of myself, I guess you could say, where rather than just, sticking it to that person, I didn't. So I don't know. Like I just think that one of the things that's most important, like I've mentioned already, is just finding something that makes you happy. Where um, I was just on a call the other day where I was talking with another kid about like what gives you energy and what takes your energy. And that's where, I mean, I feel like 90% of the people that I meet just spend the vast majority of their time doing things that just make them feel exhausted, that just completely drain them. And why? You know, like to me, I just don't really understand that. Like, I know some of it you can't exactly get around. Like, if you're like a social introvert, which I am, like, just interaction is exhausting. Like, where, like eventually you can get used to it. Like, obviously, I have a podcast that kind of have to figure a way around that eventually. But
Maybe
like,
just a little.
like I've found a way that like I feel comfortable doing this now. Like I don't necessarily struggle with this now, but like sometimes I still feel it at the end of the day. I just feel drained. And like I do still enjoy this. So it's not one of those things, but like I said, like I know there's certain things you can't get around as far as that goes. But at the
Mm.
same time, like so many of us I feel like are wasting time and potential on things that don't make us happy whatsoever.
I would agree. And honestly, that's my ultimate goal. And I don't remember where I saw it. It was I want to say some Facebook post, but the whole reason kind of that I looked at this, not only for my grandma, but it was just this random post that I saw one day. And it was like, when you're 85, you're on your deathbed and you're reflecting on your life, are you going to say that you lived with regrets? Are you going to say that you're dying happy? Are people going to be surrounding you that love you? And just the thought of being miserable when that potentially happens, I mean, not potentially, it's inevitably going to happen, but just when that happens, I don't want to be miserable. I don't want to look back on my life and be like, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or I wish I would have done this instead because it would have made me happier. I just want to be happy now. And there's no reason to waste that time being miserable and chasing after something that I know I could do. I could still do the biology side of things. I know I could be a veterinarian. I have experience at an animal hospital for 4 years. I've been there, I've done that. It's just the schooling. I don't want to be miserable for 8 years for a lifetime of happiness afterwards when I could be passionate and find passion in something else like education. And I want to be able to help people the way my mentors have helped me. And so just that ultimate goal of just being happy sooner, because why waste my time being miserable?
Totally see that for sure. And I think a lot of us kind of have struggled, like specifically kind of at our age. I mean, this is kind of like the prime time of you more or less getting beaten to a pulp and shaped into what you're going to be for the rest of your life. So, like what I mean by that is that like this is the time where I mean you gain and lose friends on a dime, you gain and lose money on a dime. Like just everything happens so fast, and like we also just talked about, like we lose family members. We like it's a rough kind of time in a lot of different facets, but at the same time, like for me, I mean, and some of it depends what exactly you want to do, and like for me, I have a little more, I guess you could say, like a vision of like down the road, where like I'd like do little things now that are building towards a larger goal. But it depends what you want. Like for me, I've kind of struggled with friends and things so far in college. I've had a lot of people come and go that I thought were going to be around a little bit longer than they were, but um, at the same time, like sometimes I look back on that and I have to look at it kind of transactionally, if you will, where now I kind of look at my friendships differently. I say, like, is this person adding to my life or are they subtracting from it? Is this relationship one sided or is it mutually beneficial? And if it is one sided, can we do anything to make it mutually beneficial or not? And if not, it may or may not be time to potentially get rid of that relationship just because it's not serving me whatsoever. If you're not making me happy, if you're not helping me reach my goals, then it's kind of like, why am I just letting you drain my energy type thing? And and it took me a long time to learn that because I had a lot of struggles with it. It's like even going back to high school where, I would do a lot of chasing where like I would chase people to hang out. I would chase, like different, I'm not going to go too far into it, but where I didn't, I guess, feel secure enough in myself at that time to where I didn't care, where now I'm kind of more of the sit back and watch what people do, and you're going to show me exactly how you feel about our friendship based on the actions that you make. And that has caused a lot of changes. And I'll tell you what, my circle's gotten a lot smaller. And I'm really not one of those people that like, if you do something wrong to me, like I'm not going to blow up in your face and kick the crap out of you and make some big spectacle out of it. I'm kind of just going to fade out. And then, like, eventually you're going to say, well, where'd you go? And I'm going to say, well, for the last 6 months, you've been doing things that showed me that I have no reason to be here anymore. And, and that's going to be it. Or I won't say anything at all. Like, some of that's just how I am. I don't waste my energy on that anymore. I used to get very upset when people would do stuff like that. But now I'm just like, it's not going to do anything. They're going to go do it again anyway. It doesn't matter.
I learned the
So,
exact same lesson in college. Like that is something I can so relate to with the kind of like the insecurity back in high school and even my freshman year. Feel like I came in and I was trying to be somebody I wasn't necessarily, not completely fake or anything, just more extroverted. I was trying to be this and I was trying to be that for everybody. But who was I being for myself? I wasn't being myself. I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't doing the things that I enjoyed. I was just trying to make other people happy. And I realized that similarly to you, I can't make everybody happy. And they're going to show me how they can benefit me and how we can mutually benefit each other by what they do. So, same exact experience. I love it.
yeah, absolutely. Like, kind of going back to the point that we made earlier, like, there's times where life gets hard. If you want to call it a squeeze point, whatever you want to call it, like where just lots of things start happening, your plate gets full, it's emotional, like everything kind of starts getting more difficult. And it gets to that point where, then you really kind of have to look like your plate is full and you have to realize like what's serving you and what is not. And you have to look at it in a way that is someone or something building you up or not, like we've just mentioned. And if you likely just need to remove them if they're just dragging you down. And I know that kind of sounds blunt, but like, trust me, it doesn't do you or them any better hanging on to whatever it is you're clinging to. And it's just, a lot of us, I think, are afraid to kind of step out of our comfort zone or our tribe, whatever you kind of want to call that. Excuse me, I understand that completely. Um, but I will also say, as hard as that is the exact action that you need to take. And I can kind of explain that a little deeper as well, where for me, I couldn't find the new opportunities that I wanted for myself until I made room. And what I mean by that is I had to lose those people. I had to lose those habits. I had to step out of that to make room for the new opportunities, the new friends, the new mentors, whatever that is, those new things to come our way. Like, I know, a lot of us, we can meet as many people as we want, but like you only have so much bandwidth to, talk to people, socialize, whatever you want to call it. Like, you obviously, we only have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of energy. Some of us are social butterflies. I am not. I don't have that. I don't have the limitless motor as far as dealing with people goes.
I could go
I've
the whole time. Like I love people. Absolutely. Love people.
well, good for you. No, it's a special trait. I'll admit. Like, I can't just. I wish I could. I've never had it. It just kind of gets to a point that I just I stopped checking in. I stop responding. I let them go in peace. I don't flip out. I don't I don't do any of that stuff. And like that's just my style. I'm not saying that anybody needs to do things the way that I do them. I'm just kind of sharing here, hoping that you get something from my experience. But just have a strong belief, and I can go deeper on this as well, but this just that's what's meant for you will find you. And and I think that is like something that I've really started to envelop just because after those hard times where I did have to kind of step out of my comfort zone, get away from those things, what I wanted magically kind of started to find me. And that's where I kind of realized the power that's in that, that I was like, whoa, like I really did have to lose that to find this new opportunity. And that's where, a lot of us kind of just need that little boot that it's time to shift your focus. Stop worrying about them. Stop worrying about anybody else. Start focusing on you. Sit internally, figure out what you want, and go after that. If anybody else doesn't like it, then they don't want that for you. And that honestly just means that,
Time to go.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and I feel like I've kind of been dominating this discussion so far. So that was not my intention. Just kind
You're
of been
okay.
a topic that I heavily relate to. So, going back here, was there any like kind of specific piece of advice or a book that you read or really anything kind of during those hard times that you felt like you were kind of able to maybe almost take on as like a mantra or anything like that, just to kind of keep you going, keep you positive, kind of just kind of keep you moving in those times?
Oh, absolutely. And it really ties into what you were just talking about, how like you have to get rid of these certain people, these certain situations to be the best self, like be the best version of yourself that you can be. So again, my senior year, when I was really going through all those, as you call them, squeeze moments, I was going through so many in a row. I lost my grandma. I moved out of my house. I didn't even have a bed for 5 years. It was difficult. And so the person who was the mandated reporter, he was my biology teacher in high school. He looked at me when I was debating on moving out, and I was like, I don't know if I can leave my siblings behind, but I don't know how I can help them. And he was like, you have to take it one step at a time. And this is the piece of advice that almost kind of like you mentioned became my mantra. I really take it to heart. And here I am almost 5 years later, still thinking about it. He said to me, you can't help them if you are empty and can't help yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. There's nothing left to give if you don't take care of yourself. So, Makayla, you have to take care of yourself. And that was something I was never told up. I was the oldest child. I was always the protector, the caregiver, all those roles. And I guess maybe that also played a part into the fact that I went into education. I still want to be that protector, that caregiver, but I never really looked at it as in I had to take care of myself. I was always giving, 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 and I never really took for myself. I never took time off for myself, and I didn't do things that I was finding joy in. And when he told me that, it just was like this wow moment. And I was like, maybe he's right. I got to step back, figure out my life, and figure out what I'm going to do now, because the person who did kind of give me that capability was gone now. Like, she took care of me. She was my caregiver. And then when I lost that, I did not take care of myself, and I didn't really have anybody else to do it for me. So that would be my mantra: is you can't pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely. And ironically, I actually heard that quote earlier today. So it's really funny that I'm hearing it kind of reiterated now. But absolutely. I can't really stress enough that point, just because I mean, I've been through, difficult times as well, as we've mentioned, and I'm also one of those people that kind of just wants to give, 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 and eventually that gets exhausting too. No matter how much you want to, eventually the tank goes empty, and there's
Mhm.
really nothing you can do about it. And I was one of those people that I felt like it really kind of backfired on me multiple times, and whether that in relationships, and I would just get to a point that, I was giving, I was giving, I was, everything that I had. I mean, even and then some, and then eventually I would just implode.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm really kind of draw a little bit of attention to that. That it's not extremely healthy. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is just that it, it feels like you're going empty, but in all reality, it's building up negative energy. And then eventually, like I said, you're gonna blow, and you don't really know what's gonna happen in those moments. I mean, like I said, I've lost people that I was close to simply because I didn't have anything left to give, and eventually, like, you snap. You just don't
Mhm.
have anything left, and you end up isolated, and
And
kind
exhausted.
of then the kind of cycle starts over at that point. But that's what I'm saying. That's why it's really important, kind of like we mentioned earlier, to find those things that give you energy, because that's kind of the balancing act. Because there's always going to be things that drain it. You have to find those things that give you more energy, so you don't have an empty cup, and per se. But that I think is really important because you're kind of like, we can't get away from the things that drain us, not completely. But if we can start to adopt more things that we do like to do, that we do enjoy doing, you're going to be happier. You're going to, just naturally be happier. Like if you have a job that you enjoy going to every day, you're going to be happier than if you have a job that you don't enjoy going to every day. And like that's where right now I think a lot of people don't understand that we're kind of like in the prime point of our lives to make mistakes. And like we're still young, and a lot of us have people that, if we get into trouble, somebody can help us out.
Mhm.
Like I had a guy on here, numerous episodes ago that more or less told me, if you go broke, do you have somewhere you can go? I said, yes. He said, if you run out of food, do you have someone that can make you a meal? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, then you're golden. What are you waiting for? Get after it. Like, and until he really put it that way, I I didn't realize that I really don't have that much to lose right now. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, like nobody wants to fail, but at the same time, like I'm at a prime point that I'm 21 years old. I can bounce back, and I'm at a prime point to learn from whatever mistakes are made. And that's where I'm saying, like, a lot of people at our age right now are pursuing a career that they think they're going to like, or
Mhm.
that somebody told them they'd be good at, but they really don't know if they're going to enjoy that. They really don't know what that's going to bring. And, like, and I'm just trying to kind of iterate here that find out, you know what I mean, as early as you can, because you don't
Mhm.
want to, graduate and then go get a job at a big accounting firm and realize you don't like accounting. Like you don't want to do that. Um, and like save yourself the trip a little bit. Like I understand, like maybe you have to stay in school another couple years. Maybe, none of us want to go further into debt. I understand that too. But like this is the time. Like you don't want to be working at a dead end job miserable for 10 years and then say, well, now I want to go back to school. Like, and I'm not hitting on anybody that's ever done that. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is like, if you could avoid that, wouldn't you want to?
Mhm.
So, um, in that perspective, what I'm saying is save yourself the trip, find out if you like that. And, you know, if it is something you're going to enjoy, great. But if it's something that somebody else just told you you're going to enjoy or somebody else wants for you, you might want to look a little deeper because you might get blindsided.
Absolutely. And I've had friends who went into college, and not to point out anybody who's done this like you said, but I've had friends follow their boyfriends to their school because, oh, my boyfriend graduated a year before me. He went to this university. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this because my dad said to, or because my mom said to, or because my grandma's this, or, whatever it may be. And when people are making those life decisions based on somebody else, how are you going to ensure that you're doing what you want for your own life? And I just think that eventually you might get to a point where it's going to backfire on you and you're going to be upset or miserable or maybe even resent a few people. And then you're going to have regrets. And I mean, that's my goal, is to not have those type of regrets and to not look back and be like, I did that for somebody else, not me.
I think to a point, I mean, and I know some people that like are like business students, and they get hung up on the fact that like they'll have like business ideas or something like that if they're interested in, going down the entrepreneurship track, but they get caught up in the fact that somebody else has done it before. And I mean, some of it I just kind of look at them and I'm like, do you know what age we live in? Like, there's not that much stuff that hasn't been done before. They don't even make movies that already haven't been made before. Like, like
All
at
the
this point,
remixes of
like,
the songs.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard to create something completely original in the world that we live in now. Like, especially as fast as people can create things, and like, and that's not saying like give up on whatever that is. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying that, move past the idea that somebody's done it before, now I can't, and realize that, and this is one of the things that honestly really took me a long time to hit as well, because I was also pursuing like a business venture not too long ago, that really, until I heard this piece of advice from my mentor, was getting me hung up, because like I'm a college student, I'm borderline broke. I don't have any funds or, really any experience to go get money from like venture capitalists or something like that, to where I can have enough money to launch a business. Like, I'm like, so who am I to do this? And really, in a conversation with my mentor, he tells me like, like anybody else can take this idea and go do something with it, but they're not you. So no matter how hard they try, no matter what they do with it, they're not you. They don't have your take. You cannot be replicated. No matter what, you are bringing your heart to it, your mind, your care, your conversation. That is you. And no matter what they want to do, they can't be you. And it's never going to happen. So sometimes you just kind of have to remind yourself that you are something special. And I think that that's something that I even have to remind myself of pretty often. Because like sometimes I just sit back and I'm like, why am I doing this? And we all need those reminders sometimes. And that's where like I'm kind of trying to say here, like, if you're worried about taking that step out of your comfort zone or whatever that is, like we've talked a lot about today, but it's something that you want for you, not something that anybody else wants, take that step. If they're important to you, they'll get over it. Your relationships will mend, like everything will be okay. But what I'm saying is, if you never take that step and it is something that you truly want, then that's where regret comes in. And that's something that you're going to carry. And nobody wants to carry that. It gets heavy. And, you know, that's one of those things that drains your cup.
Absolutely. Going off that, I guess, something that I believe in fate, and it relates to what you were talking about earlier. Um, but I believe in fate, and that you said how things are going to be okay in the end. And absolutely, I think, though, kind of going with that, you have to meet fate where you want to go. If that makes any sense at all. You have to take the time, put in the work, put in the effort, and you have to make those conscious decisions to improve your life or work towards that goal or that dream or that vision. And you have to meet fate where you want to go in life. And I think that's really important. I think we forget about that a lot of times. But I guess that's just my view on things.
No, I actually really like what you just said, because there's a lot of us that I feel like ask for a lot of things from the universe, whether we want more money, whether we want to have fast cars, whatever, you know what I mean? Like whatever that thing is, but we do a lot of asking, and we don't realize that there's hard work and things that come with that. And the reason is that we have to value those things when we do get them. You ever notice that like the people you see win the lottery blow all their money and then go broke right afterwards because they didn't work for it. They didn't value that whatsoever. That's why the people that do have massive amounts of money are so wealthy. They worked that hard to get there. They know how to keep it. They know how to maintain it. And that works for different things than just money. That works for love. That works for family, for friendships. you have to go through the trials and tribulations, the gauntlet, if you will, to know how to appreciate those things when they do come your way. And the universe is funny that way because it'll give you everything you want. You just have to be prepared for it.
Mhm.
And that's where, like you were just talking about, like it takes hard work and it takes like you taking the first step. And, like that opportunity is never going to prevent itself if you never move. Present itself if you never move. And point being that you have to take that first step and you have to start compounding those good things in the right direction. And then, as I mentioned earlier, things will magically start being attracted to you in the direction that you want to go. I mean, for me, it was a mentor. And like, I can honestly say, you're not going to know when that opportunity is going to come, and you're never going to be fully prepared for it. But what you can prepare for is to recognize that opportunity. And what I mean by that is for me, it was literally like I went into a Zoom meeting and I was seeing people present on real estate. And that's where I met my mentor. And in that moment in time, I was like, I relate heavily to this guy. He seems like a super nice guy. And he seems like he could really help me out with what I'm dealing with right now. And in doing that, in that moment, I had to recognize that all I can do, what I can control, is I can reach out to him. If he responds, if he shrugs me off, whatever else happens after that, I can't control. But I can control that I can private message him in this Zoom meeting right now. And what happened is that's what I did. And then luckily he responded, and the rest is kind of history. He convinced me to start this whole thing. So, obviously we're doing okay. But point being that I wasn't ready for that. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I openly told him, well, not in that message, but when we had our first call, I openly told him, I was like, look, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm driven and I have a vision that I want to reach, but I just don't know how to get there. That's why I'm asking for your help. And that, I mean, that was just me being transparent. But point being, like, it's okay to not know, but don't let that opportunity pass you by because you don't know, because you're not ready. You're not going to be ready, but just know that when that opportunity is there, you can chase that. You can step towards it regardless of whether or not you're ready.
Absolutely. I had a similar situation. It's so funny how our stories kind of line up together. It was the beginning of my junior year. It was with a professor here at Westminster. She set me up to do my field experience with early childhood and special education. So, but it was during COVID times and a lot of the schools were closed. I had never set into a foot like into a classroom really before that. I hadn't really had much experience other than like private tutoring, or like an after school program. I never set foot into an actual classroom before my junior year. So going into a classroom that late in my college experience and being like, what if I don't like it? I'm absolutely terrified. I ended up going to this preschool classroom. I did 80 hours of field experience and I was connected through Mrs. Reed, in the School of Education, and the director of the daycare offered me a job. I've been working there for over a year now. And just taking that step, with my first lesson, she said, I would have never guessed that it was your first time in front of a classroom full of kids. And so I guess where that story was going is if you have a passion for something and if you want to do something, don't be scared. And again, if you want something to happen, you have to go towards it and you have to put in the work. And here I am. And I don't know what I'm doing after graduation yet, but I already have a job offer there. And if I want to continue working there, I love it there. I could, and I have opportunities waiting for me.
I think that's so powerful, honestly. And what I can tell you just real quick is, in my experience, like you're gonna get nervous, you're gonna be scared. Like, don't get me wrong, like that's not like that doesn't disappear. But in my experience, nerves often mean that whatever like you're getting nervous about is something that you really want to do. You're either worried about it being bad, you're worried about it going south, you're worried about some sort of negative outcome, but you're nervous because you really want that thing. And that's why you need to do it. Because you really want to do it. Don't let that hold you back from achieving that outcome. Like that is the opportunity in itself. But with that said, I do know we've been going for quite a while here, and I do think it's about time to start winding it down. Not an over the top energetic episode today, but I feel like there's been a lot of value packed in here as far as relationships and just thought mindset. So I want to thank you for coming on and sharing. It's been great. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story. Of course, I know that was personal, and I know what it's like bringing that back up. So thank you again for being willing to share that. One of the questions I always like to ask the guests in closing is, if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself during that ground zero moment, what do you think you would tell yourself?
Such a hard question to answer. So I'm gonna have to take a minute to think about it. But I guess looking back at the multiple ground zero moments that I've had, there's kind of one common theme to all of them, and it would be in my insecurity in myself, and kind of being scared to take the next step and not knowing that I had the confidence to do it, or whatever it may have been. I guess I would just look at myself and say, you've got this. You need to take a deep breath, really think about it. Is this what you want for yourself? Is it going to make you happy, or is it because you're doing it for other people? And I would just tell myself, reflect on the reasons you're doing it. And if those reasons are good, that's going to be good enough for you, and you should move forward with it. Don't be so scared to do the things that you want to do just because you don't think the opportunity will work out, or because the people may not like you, or they might not like what you're wearing, whatever it may be. Don't be scared. Just put your heart into it and it'll work out.
There you have it, folks. Makayla Guntrum was your rock star of the day. So much value in today's episode, and I hope you guys get a lot out of our conversation. Makayla, thank you so much again for being willing to come on and share. And always remember, folks, this is ground zero, and there's nowhere to go from here but up. Thanks, guys.